Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Vetting America, episode 20. I'm your host, Adam T. Cummings, and I'm here with Chief Petty Officer Tony Griffin, who served in the United States Navy from 1974 to 1994. This afternoon, we'll be discussing lessons learned in the military, purpose after service, and the mindsets that need to be adorned in order to make a life out here in civilian life. I'm honored to have all of you join us on a beautiful day here in downtown Tampa. Please like and share this interview to a vet you feel that would learn a lot from the knowledge that Tony's about to express to us today. Before we get going, I want to thank our sponsors, which you'll see below, and a quick shout out to the Attic Cafe in downtown Tampa for hosting us. Hey, Tony, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for letting me be here.
So let's jump into it.
All right.
So tell us your story. What was your time in the Navy like?
Well, I went in the Navy when I was young. I was around 18 years old, 1974, and it was quite an experience. I actually got a chance to travel all around the world. Right, I spent about 10 years stationed on the West Coast and 10 years stationed on the East Coast. Okay. So I got a chance to cover pretty much half the hemisphere, yes, while one side and the other. So it was pretty good.
How many floats you went on?
I was on seven ships, aircraft carriers, destroyers, fast frigate, and AFS, which is a food service ship, and an AOR.
What was your favorite?
My favorite probably was the fast frigate. Yeah. I love the small boat.
So you did 20 years. You picked up E7 Chief. You were actually slated to pick up E8 before you said, I don't know about doing another 3.
I kind of had to hang around for another 3 years to do that, and I was at pretty much the end of my tour. Yep. I felt my family had I'd spent enough time. I had 16.5 years of sea duty, so wow. I thought that was good enough.
Yes, that's a lot. That's incredible. I just wanted... Leadership is a big aspect of the military, and as you've gotten out here, obviously leadership still prevails. What were some of the lessons you took from your leaders as you were coming up, and then what were some of the leadership principles you attempted to instill in your sailors?
Well, in the military, integrity is everything. For me, that was one of the number one things. Your integrity, if you didn't have that, I didn't think that you had the capability to do anything else. Here's an example. If you were a sailor that worked for me and you couldn't take care of your family and take care of those personal things that you said you loved, then I couldn't see how it would be possible for you to do your job.
So what were some of the lessons you taught them? Like how if you found a sailor that wasn't where you needed them to be at the time, did you do the Marine Corps way where you just you kind of beat it into them until they conform, or how was your leadership style in helping those sailors kind of get out of their own way and take care of the things they needed to take care of?
Well, mine was a kind of a style of focus. Okay. So if I found a person that was kind of subpar, then obviously you got my attention and you got my focus. But I also wanted you to know that your team around you, right, also was going to help and share some of that focus. So it wasn't just my responsibility to whip you into shape. It was the team's responsibility to whip you into shape.
What led you Wait, sorry. I got lost there for a second. Sorry about that. Okay, so what was your transition like? You spent 20 years in the Navy, 17 years on float deployments, and in that mentality of always moving around, always changing duty stations, always going left and right, dragging your family everywhere, and all of a sudden it just stops.
That is the true challenge, and I think that's the biggest challenge that any veteran deals with. For me, mine didn't end the way that it would normally end. I was actually in the Adriatic Sea doing the no-fly zone, Bosnia, Herzegovina, all of that. And my wife got seriously ill, deathly ill. So my career ended being flown off the ship on emergency leave, being told that my wife may not live by the time that I got there.
Wow.
So that's how mine ended. It was a little different.
You went through some things in the military, which created some issues for you in your transition.
Yes.
That you had to deal with, some PTSD,
right,
things like that. How were you able to battle those post-military service issues and really create a life of purpose out here after service at the same time?
As odd as it may seem, it took me about almost 20 years to this point after military service to discover that I had some of those issues going on. I thought that some of the things that I was going through were just oh, I haven't adjusted yet. I'm still in the military. You know, I still look at things squarely. You know, walls are bulkheads. You know, ceilings are overheads, things like that. And I didn't realize that those things were impacting me and my family. So I recently, I go to the VA, and I recently was diagnosed with PTSD.
Okay.
And it all started coming together for me as doctors and people start working with me, and I start putting these pieces of puzzle. I discovered all these missing pieces that I was looking for, right? And it was overwhelming, because now I discovered some of the things, why I was doing some of the things that I was doing, how it impacted my family, and why my transition back into life was so difficult.
What were some of the resources you leveraged as you started finding that maybe I'm not okay? And that's a hard thing to admit in itself, especially as a veteran when we're proud. And
right.
You know, it's a stigma to go to medical in the military. You're weak. You're the P word.
Exactly
you're
right.
This. You're that. And I mean, even for myself, I had remorse for the fact I didn't serve in an actual combat role. I didn't put rounds down range, you know? I mean...
So it's amazing. It's amazing that you say that, because it's the number one things that veterans go through is they go through those exact stages. I can remember myself thinking, well, I don't want to go to the VA. It's too complicated. I don't want to, you know, seem like I'm weak. You know, they don't know what they're talking about, all those kind of things. Well, in fact, what happens is that when you engage and go there, you're surrounded by veterans just like you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You start talking the same language.
Yep.
And you start getting tidbits of information to help you realize that, listen, I'm like this because of what I did and how much where I served and things that I was involved in that normal people wasn't. So it helps you to start being around that environment.
Yes.
And you start trying to, you start together it. So it's a unique thing, and that's why I recommend all veterans to reach out to VSOs, veteran groups, and just start talking to people just like you.
VSOs, again, are veteran service organizations. They're here, nonprofits, resources, the government programs that help veterans transition back into society and obtain the benefits and things that they need to be successful. It's ironic that you wanted nothing to do with the VA, and now you're a VA, not so much a VA advocate,
right,
but you're establishing yourself as almost an expert in VA healthcare and benefits and kind of everything that's going on. So you're a vetpreneur now. You have your own company, correct?
That's correct.
And this company has the acronym, which we love in the military, of VMO. So explain to us what VMO is and how you went from, seems like how I did it. I didn't really want anything to do with the government or the VA when I got out, and then all of a sudden I embraced it.
Right.
How were you able to make that change so quickly from not wanting for almost however long, not wanting to do anything with it, and then all of a sudden you're like, there's something here that's for me. This is a purpose now.
Well, it was a unique situation for me. After I got out of the military, I worked in the manufacturing world for a good amount of time. I struggled because of transition issues, again, with the military. And then over the last, about 5 years ago, I got involved in financial services, the insurance world, and I loved it. I loved educating people. I loved helping people. That was good for me. But as we evolved into that, and VMO actually stands for Veterans Medicare Options.
Okay.
And as we evolved into financial services, I got into Medicare because here again, I loved helping people. So what I discovered when I got there was that there were so many veterans that had no idea of their benefits that was available to them, especially when it came time to Medicare. So I started leaning the business toward that, and I wanted to be able to help as many veterans as possible. So the focus of the business is education.
Okay.
Right? I try to educate them, and we go from there. And whatever happens after that is great.
We have a thriving vet population here in Florida. It's the second largest population for veterans in the entire country, next to California, because California is just massive.
Right.
Talk to us about some of the statistics you're trying to combat here in Florida, but even across nationally.
Well, here's what we need to think about. The U.S. population is around 327 billion people. Florida's population is around almost 21 million people. Well, the veteran population of Florida is about 1.5, 1.6 million.
Wow.
So that's around 6-7%. Right? So nationally, the veteran population in this country is around 6.5%. So Florida has a huge veteran population. right?
Yes.
And as people come here and retire, there's so many. I see so many homeless veterans. I see so many veterans trying to utilize their VA benefits at the the regional VA center, but they just don't have a lot of information. So this area is just saturated with veterans, and we need to be able to reach out to them and help them.
Through some of my own research, I learned that most vets don't use their VA benefits. I read that only 10% use their GI Bill, maybe 50% use the VA healthcare. So let's talk a little bit about those statistics, and why do you believe that veterans are kind of apathetic when it comes to leveraging what they've actually earned?
I think that it's because lack of knowledge and education.
Yes.
So when you go into the military, you go in and you go through this uphill, gradual training of how to become a military person. But when you get out, it doesn't work that way. You get out, you go to your last days, you might get a couple of weeks of some documents handed to you, and then that's it. So you need to be trained and educated how to make this transition back into that, and you also need to know what all these benefits are. There's a ton of VA benefits that are available for veterans that they don't know about.
Let's talk about some of those.
Let's talk about it. So one of the most popular ones is buying a home, right? Utilizing VA mortgage. I bought my home, right, with a VA mortgage. There's VA health benefits that are available to you.
Yes.
There's educational benefits that are available to you. There are benefits for financial services things, insurance, GI Bill, educational benefits for your family. So a lot of times when I talk to a veteran about Medicare, one of the first things that I'll ask them is, are you, especially if I'm talking to a spouse, I'll ask them, are you the spouse of a veteran, right?
Okay.
Or are you a veteran? Because it changes everything.
It does.
So for example, with Medicare, a veteran can use Medicare and VA benefits dually at the same time.
Wow.
Because the VA healthcare is a benefit. It's not a healthcare.
It's true.
So it allows you to have both of these at the same time.
Okay.
And most veterans don't know that.
No, I'm sure.
Right?
And the government doesn't want us to know about that, and it's more expensive.
It's huge, right. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
I heard that there's, I don't know if this is scuttlebutt or not. Scuttlebutt is rumors for scuttlebutt. That they intentively make the VA process very difficult so that veterans are turned off to it.
And that's a very popular topic. I do believe that the initial process is somewhat of a weaning out process in there. But at the end of the day, I have talked to many veterans that submitted VA claims, compensation claims, and they got very frustrated because it was no, 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 right? But I will say, and I've done the same, I have compensation claims in right now, and I have been denied for some things, but that does not stop me. I continue to go on to the next level, right? And you can take it all the way until the Board of Veteran Appeals and Affairs, which actually goes before a judge, and they actually look at it, and they make kind of final decisions. So don't get frustrated if that happens, because the most important thing you need to understand is that you earned all those benefits. You earned that compensation.
That's the issue that I'm actually having right now. I've had a couple people tell me that I should go and claim for my VA benefits in terms of disability and things like that.
Absolutely.
My pride's getting in the way a little bit.
Well, I want you to think about, let's go back to those numbers that we talked about.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about 20 million veterans. It represents about, 6% of the population? So 6% of this population is putting on that uniform, protecting the 94%.
Yes.
All right, so with that being said, that 6% earned all the benefits that they can get.
It's true.
And their families earned that also.
Okay.
Because I know that the 16.5 years that I was at sea, my family was back here worried about whether they'd ever see me again. All right, and it's every other veteran that goes out and do their job.
That's a huge point.
Exactly.
I did some research onto VA Choice Healthcare because I do have VA benefits. I did go to the VA and sign up for that. I just haven't gone and done my disability and all that stuff.
Correct.
I thought it was a lot better than, well, let's just say that the White House made it seem a lot more amazing than what my research kind of showed. So let's talk a little bit of, yeah, go figure. Let's talk about a little bit of how does VA choice healthcare work, and what are some of the parameters to actually be able to use those benefits?
Well, so they made some changes, and there's some changes that's coming.
Yes.
Soon. Mm-hmm. And every veteran needs to be aware of the changes that's coming, and it's going to take place in October 1st of 2019. Mm-hmm. That's the beginning of the fiscal year, so there's some changes coming. But VA Choice Healthcare basically is where, okay, the VA system is crowded. Mm-hmm. It's a lot going on there, right? So they give you this choice to be able to go out to doctors outside of that.
Yes.
However, it's based on whether or not you cannot get a VA appointment,
yes,
say within 30 days, or you live so far away, right? But keep in mind that when you go outside the VA, you're dealing with doctors that are maybe not familiar with some of military processes. You may not be able to talk the same language to them. They may be new at this game, so don't expect to go there and it's going to be instantaneously better. You may get seen, all right, but do they have access to your records? Do they have access to all your information? So it's okay that you're going to get you're going to get seen by a doctor, but just be patient with it.
I had another woman come on my show who was a VA whistleblower because of basically she was there working. She was in the Army. She got out. She became an RN. Went and started working with the VA, and then started seeing just terrible practices happening all over. And one of the things she was saying was that we're basically guinea pigs in the VA. So yes, the VA's there to help us and this and that, but if they're giving us experiential treatments and drugs that may not be well known, and it's almost as if we're the first line of research to be actual test subjects, which makes sense because we've been test subjects and how much in our lives. We are literally guinea pigs. As soon as you go into the military, you go to boot camp, they start sticking and prodding you and doing all these things. That is, and do you believe that there's a reason for that, or you just believe that they're just taking advantage of a situation where they have free research subjects?
Well, I think that the medical world today is very challenging.
Yes.
And I think that it's one of the reasons why I push so much for veterans that are eligible for Medicare to have the 2 railroad tracks that I'm talking about. Because here's what happened. I just talked to a vet the other day with this. If you have a VA doctor and they give you an opinion on one thing, if you can go to another doctor right outside the VA and you have a second opinion, and those opinions line up, you're probably going the right directions. But if those opinions go 180 degrees out, right, something's wrong here, right? Yes. But veterans that can only go to the VA and they only have VA doctors, well, they don't have that option, to do that. So having a second opinion about anything is a great power to have, because it's a power of knowledge. Here again, knowledge is power, right?
That's absolutely right. So you hit on it. 2019, October, there's some changes coming.
Right.
And they're a little alarming.
Yes,
and this was a motivational fact. This is why I'm glad you're here today, because I'm learning a lot myself, because I am not too well familiar with VA and benefits and everything that we get. We have these benefits coming, or changing actually.
Right.
And this is the reason why I think I need to go and do my thing just in case. It's actually going to become harder to get VA benefits.
Well, it's going to become a little bit more challenging to get compensation. So there's a compensation problem, that there's a part that's going to be more changes. So here's a couple of things in here that's going to be happening in here. So they're going to be making changes to clarifying how much evidence is needed for the VA in order for C&P examination. So the VA had something what was called a obligation to assist.
Okay.
So if you put in a VA claim as a veteran for compensation, the VA would have to assist you in filing that compensation. You need doctor's examinations, all that kind of thing. So they're going to be making some major changes there, right? In other words, doing less. And then also they're going to be making changes to Vietnam veterans that were exposed to Agent Orange and other herbicides. So they had this policy where if you served and you had boots on the ground there, it was a presumption that you was exposed.
Wow.
Right? It was called a presumption, you were exposed. So they're going to be making a few changes there with that. So it's going to be a little bit more responsibility for, a veteran to prove some things that they were exposed to it.
But what about these veterans that were so the Vietnam War and the way the veterans were treated on the way home and after that war and everything.
Right.
It was one of the greatest atrocities that could have happened in this country in the history of our country.
Yes, it was.
But beyond that, I'm grateful for that sacrifice of them, because now being a post 9/11 veteran is completely different.
Right.
I mean, it's still not where it should be.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm not going through being spit on and coming home. And how many Vietnam vets are on the streets? How many Vietnam vets past the age of 55 have committed suicide?
A lot.
64%, I believe it was, around our 55-plus-year-old vets who served in Vietnam are the 22 a day.
And you're absolutely right. And that group of veterans were some of the ones that were left on their own.
Yes.
Right. They were scorned when they came back.
Yes.
Today, if I wear this hat and I go out to a restaurant somewhere, somebody wants to buy me a drink, or they want to buy me lunch, and they'll say to me, "Thank you for your service." Well, they didn't get nothing like that.
Nope.
Right. And
they got glares and absconded.
They got glares and they got scorned, and they were left on their own. Well, all those veterans now are mature. My brother is one of them. My brother's he was in Vietnam in 1969, 1968.
Yes.
And he's a 100% disabled veteran now. And he's with the DAV, which is a VSO group, Disabled Veterans of America. And he can tell you stories about going through all of that. So that group is ones that need a lot of help and a lot of focus right now, because they feel like they were abandoned.
Yes.
And, the country was a traitor to them.
Yes.
And they feel that way.
And how could you not?
Exactly.
I mean, first of all, most of these young men at 18, 19 years old didn't want to go anyway. They were drafted. They were sent there.
They were sent there.
Without wanting to be there.
Right.
Did what they had to do, came back home, were scorned, spit on,
right.
No benefits.
Right.
And now they're living on the streets. How could you not have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder when it comes to that?
And that's exactly right.
And so my question to you is, going back to what we were talking about 2019, and how do you have those veterans that were trying to get off the streets and trying to get their benefits and trying to get everything that they deserve when they don't have records, they don't have licenses, they don't even have naturalization paperwork? How are we going to convince the VA now, which is a difficult process to begin with,
right.
that these veterans served in Vietnam, were exposed to Agent Orange, and deserve to be get compensated for their disabilities?
Well, as I see it, there's two problems there. There's one in the veteran itself, because those veterans they were so frustrated they didn't want nothing to do with the VA. So the one task is talking to them and convincing them that you earned this, you're respected for it, you're now honored for it. Even though things were bad at that time, the country has made a turn. So you're respected and you're honored now, and you deserve all the benefits that you can get. So that's one task. And then the other side of that is the VA side, and they don't need to make any changes for those veterans that's going to make it harder for them. They need to have the same policies, in fact, the presumptive claims, because if you served on the ground there, you were exposed to everything. Everything. Not some, but you were exposed to everything.
Yes.
It's just that simple.
It really is that simple, because it was everywhere, in the air, all the time.
That's exactly right.
I don't hate nothing. I don't hate anything. I don't like talking bad about the VA, because they have helped a lot of people.
Right.
But they're not where there should be, and there's a lot of issues and corruption and things that aren't being done properly. It's blatant. It's evidence.
Yes.
But why are they having such a hard time properly serving veterans when your job is to service veterans?
I think that some changes have been made.
Yes.
Some changes have been made that's moving things in the right direction.
It is.
We can see during this particular spectrum that there's been lots of changes at the top. Right. I don't even know if they even got a VA director yet, other than a permanent one. I think they still got an interim one.
Yes.
So there's a lot of changes going on there. So when there's leadership problems at the top, you can't expect for the process to move forward. Let's talk about the size of the VA for a second.
Okay.
There's about 60.5 million people on Social Security.
Wow.
The VA is around 20 million people. So you're talking about a system that's 1/3 the size of all Social Security.
Wow.
So it's massive.
Yes.
It is massive, and they're getting better at it, and I have high hopes for it.
Of course, you gotta have hope.
I think that I actually utilize the VA, so there's some bad points, but I think technology has helped things 100%. To go better.
And I think
because it used to be just bogged down in paperwork.
Yes, absolutely.
Technology has made it better.
And I really think that veterans are starting to actually take accountability for it's our VA. At the end of the day, it's our VA, and I mean, that's where I feel that a lot of veterans get into a self-entitled mode that, oh, I deserve this, I deserve that, I deserve this, but what are you doing to make that happen?
Right.
And you can't just expect things to happen without doing the work, and if there's a problem, you can't expect other people to handle it.
That's right.
So I feel as though, you know, through this show, through what you do, through education and informing veterans that it's our duty to overhaul these systems, and the only way you do that is by exercising your American rights that you served for to protect, and going about doing it.
You hit a valuable thing on the head here. Is that I remember in the active duty. I remember one time when I was at E7. I walked in the CO. The CO called me up to his stateroom. I went in there. It was a problem, and he asked me up. I walked in there, and I presented him with what the problem was, but I didn't have any solutions. Right. And he told me, don't ever walk in my stateroom again. Bring me some solutions, possible solutions to this problem. Well, as veterans, we got to do the same thing.
Yep.
We don't talk about and complain about.
We're good at that.
What's wrong with the VA? But let's talk about, you know, some possible solutions also.
That's why I respect you so much, is because you saw an issue, and you know service is, to me, I think veterans lose that idea of service once they get out.
Right.
Because they were always voluntold, and it was never their own will to really serve. They signed up and they did their job, and but that becomes a part of you, and you don't even realize it's missing when you're out. And for me, I didn't realize it was missing until during Irma, I went and actually helped the local community. I helped feed the local community and give them supplies. It was like 4 hours. I cooked hamburgers and hot dogs for a community, and in that time,
felt great. Didn't it?
I felt so good. And at that point, that was August last year, and that's what kind of, right after Irma is when I figured out this whole thing, and I went my whole path and everything. And after that, man, there's something to this service thing that I didn't realize was a part of me now.
That's exactly right.
And I think that we get so bitter after we separate, some of us, most of us, that we don't want to serve anymore, and then our souls start to kind of just go numb. And that's a thing, and that's exactly what drove me to want to help other veterans, right? Because I would like to be able to, my daughter was in Iraq. She was in Basra. That's right.
And she's a 70% disabled veteran. So I want to be able to help people like that when they come back. I mean, she'll call me today and say, Dad, you know, what do you think about this? What should I do here? You know, and it's so helpful. And I feel so good to be able to tell her something and give her some input that can help and make a difference. So I like to be able to do that with all veterans. Absolutely. So what's the plan with VMO? What do you need right now to be successful? What are you trying to do to grow? What's the next 1 or 2 year growth strategy? So our goal with VMO is, number one, is that it's basically for me an educational platform. Okay. I want to be able to educate veterans about all the opportunities and benefits that's available to them. Right, so that they'll know and they'll spread. I want to be a resource. Okay. So my wife and I started this business, and we just want to be a resource that a veteran can call, and even though it may not be directly in our line of Medicare insurance, right? If you ask me a question about other things, for example, Social Security, I will bet that most veterans didn't know that they're entitled to Social Security credits just because of their active duty service. If they served during a certain period of time, most veterans don't know about it. Right? So there's many things. Here's disability, for example. Most veterans don't know the difference between VA disability, right, and Social Security or state disability. They're two totally different things, but they can both happen at the same time. You can receive VA benefits for disability, and you can receive Social Security benefits for disability. So we're leaving money on the table left and right. Exactly. Okay. We're leaving money on the table. Do you hear this? This guy is the truth. We're struggling to feed our families. Yes. Right? And we don't know that we're leaving opportunities and monies on the table. If you own a business, right, and you're a veteran, there's opportunities for you for government contracting. There's set aside benefits for you. There's set aside contracts for you. All this kind of stuff, but you don't know about it. That's true. So that's why we have to network as veterans and let each other know about what's happening. What's your strategy to kind of get that message out there and educate more and more veterans? Have you considered a podcast? Have you considered YouTube channel? Have you considered public speaking and exactly? And like at my church on Wednesday nights, we do a What church is that? And that is Renew and Transform. Renew and Transform Ministries. So every Wednesday night we do a Facebook Live. Okay. And I usually pick topics financial services topics,
Perfect.
financial responsibility, college planning, debt, credit, buying houses, all these kind of things. And not that I'm an expert about it, but I research and get information that veterans can use, right, to make their lives better. Because at the end of the day, it's not just the veteran that's on active duty, it's its family also.
Beyond just the VA and Medicare and disability and things like that, what are some of the resources that you've come across in your time doing this with the VMO and meeting people and networking and doing anything? What are some outsourced resources, some nonprofits and things that you think are very efficient?
There's a tremendous amount of veteran services organizations, first of all, that can help vets answer questions. And that's what you need, first of all, to get questions answered. So here's some groups that you can just keep in mind here. There's some groups here like the American Gold Star Mothers, the American Legion, AMVETS, Disabled Veterans of America, Florida County Veteran Service Officers, Korean War Veterans, Military Officers Association. There's hundreds of them. And there's lots of them here. FDVA, Florida Department of Veteran Affairs. All of these groups are here to be able to help veterans. So when I see a homeless veteran out there, the first thing that comes to my mind is that this person doesn't know or have any of this information, because there are many things that can help them. So I think if we stick together as groups, just like we're doing right now in a podcast, and I'd love to be able to do, I want to do a podcast just so that we can educate veterans, and groups like us can stick together and expand that so that veterans know and they get knowledge.
I know for a fact that a lot of the people that watch these interviews, they get a lot of good nuggets out of it, and this is just a super strong interview for things that I have not yet covered in depth to this point. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it, because this is exactly what Vetting America is all about. Is I just want to make sure that veterans understand that when I started this journey, I did not know about anything but the Wounded Warrior Foundation. I mean, I told you, I pushed the government away, I pushed the veterans away. I didn't even join my veteran organization, my veteran organization at the University of Tampa. I wanted nothing to do with it. And I wouldn't say I regret that, because I needed to completely disengage in order to transition, transform, and now I'm in a better place to help veterans and myself. But regardless, we do need to stick together, and we do need to inform veterans about what's out there, because we're suffering. There's a lot of veterans out there that suffer. I see it all the time. I see it in Facebook groups. I see it from my friends, like just lost souls. And I feel as though if we can get veterans at least the right health care, the right benefits, educational-wise, financially-wise, that they'll set themselves up with a foundation to be able to grow and create a purpose out here, which will inevitably be what? Serving other people, if not serving other veterans. It seems to be the common trend. It's like, it's almost we fight, surrender, accept, evolve, and then go, I'm so much happier. I want to do this. I want to help other veterans feel this way. So I really appreciate everything you're doing. Let's talk about mindset. We talked a lot about the VA, about VMO, about everything we're doing, but we haven't yet talked really about you and how you were able to create the life that you created for yourself out here, overcome the battles and challenges. I'm big on mindset. I'm big on self-development and overhauling. We tend to have a negative mindset sometimes, being veterans. I mean, even just in the military, it's very pessimistic and negativity. Misery loves company, and that we bond over that. But it's poisonous out here, and it's affecting veterans in a not very good way. So talk a little bit about mindset and how you were able to get out of your own way, start getting the resources you need, started going for the things get rid of that pride and ego and the stigma that was keeping you from really doing what it is you needed to do.
Well, it's very interesting. Like I said, when I got out of the military, I didn't go through a big transition in doing that, and for a long time it was very hard for me because I expected everything out here to still look like that.
Yes.
I expected everything to be vertical, and square.
And everyone knows what they're doing.
Everyone knows
their
doing.
place.
Everybody knows their place. And that's what we expect, and it wasn't that way. So I had this adjustment to go through, and everybody to be to that standard. And it was hard. Even my family.
Yes.
Even my children, I expected for them to be blocked off and squared away and fall in line and all of that.
45-degree cuts on the...
That's right. I mean, I still fold my socks thin, thick, thin today, I mean, it's who we are,
20
right?
years.
So that was a challenge, but more importantly, I had no idea about some of the things that was affecting me. I didn't know why I only slept 4 hours a day.
You thought it was normal?
I thought it was normal, exactly. I thought it was normal for me to be up at 3 a.m. in the morning, checking doors, checking windows. Just, you know, when I walked into a restaurant, I didn't just walk in and look for a seat. I walked in and I reconned it.
Yep, absolutely. I still don't like having my back to like open areas.
Exactly.
If I'm going to sit somewhere, I'm like, let me just get the exit. Okay,
exactly.
I'm here.
Exactly.
And I mean, it's not bad to have that still.
No, it's
but
not
when it
bad
becomes
to
obsessive.
have it, but when it overpowers you,
Oh.
it makes it difficult for your life to go on and to make that transition. So I think one of the greatest things that you can do in that is to be around and discover that that's where you are. Because once you know where your reference point is, you can now start openly talking to other people, right, especially other veterans, right, and discover that, wow, you know, I didn't realize that I was like that, or I didn't realize that I saw things like that. And then you can start engaging and maybe, you know, getting some involvement and some counseling, and you can start changing some things. And that's what happened to me. But more importantly, what happened, one of the things that really changed me was that, you know, my faith in God, I got closer there. And as I got closer there in that group, I realized that I was, you know, I was overbearing in some areas. And I didn't realize it, you know.
Normal.
So I started reaching out.
You were chief.
How's that?
Just being chief, man.
Just being chief.
You know, wearing the khakis still and everything. You got the web belt.
That's it. That's it.
Did you have a strong self-relationship when you got out of the Navy? And you said, you know, you returned to God. I returned to God. It wasn't until and it's not religion, anything. It's the idea of having a self-relationship with something bigger than yourself.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. I call it the universe often.
Right.
The stigma that God has now, it really turns people off. And I want people to understand that I'm never pushing religion or God on anyone.
Right.
I just want them to understand that when you can surrender to the idea that you could be your own God is when you can finally release this pressure to be perfect. And if you can realize that you are a flawed human being and
Right.
that's okay, and you're beautiful because of your imperfections,
That's right.
that's when you can transcend.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly what happened. What happened with me is
Yep.
that when I was able to release that pressure and realize that I wasn't some machine, right? And it was okay for me to make mistakes, and it was okay for me to not understand something, right? It was such a great relief of pressure that I wasn't expected to have all the answers, you know?
What a different world.
It was a different world.
Yeah.
You know, it was a truly different world after that. So, and you can establish your moral, see what getting closer to God did for me was establish my moral integrity. That's it. Just establish my moral integrity of who I am as a human being. And once that happened, it'll enable me to be able to reach out to others and get all the help that I needed to do it. So, you know, here I am today, you know, just a guy 20 years ago, got out of the military and just now figured out that how PTSD affected me. You know, and I'm getting all the help that I need, and it's making all the changes, all the difference in my life right now.
And see, that's another thing that's so great about your story and what you're doing is that you're a living proof that it works.
It works.
If you do it right. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of time,
Yes.
and you have to be patient. But that's why you're doing what you're doing now, is because you put yourself through that. Maybe that's what your whole purpose was. Maybe you needed to go through this crazy 20 years post-military service and come to this conclusion to be like, now I can truly help somebody the way I've been wanting to, but I didn't even know how to go about doing that because I wasn't yet helping myself. And I truly believe that you cannot help someone, you cannot truly love someone until you help and love yourself.
That's right.
So that's incredible. We're about to wrap it up, right? And I have the same question I end every interview with because it's very powerful to me. I ask, if there's a sage piece of advice you can give to a transitioning military member right now who's either in the midst of their transition, 20 years, 5 years, still in the military looking to get out, what would that be?
It would be to engage yourself with military people and or groups that can help you make that transition. We sometimes don't think we need it, but we do.
Yes.
And if you can do that, and if you can get connected, especially with someone that's already done it, right? If you can connect with someone that do it, they can tell you the pitfalls. They can give you insight on things that you may not think that will happen to you, but it will. So I didn't basically have that opportunity when I got out because, like I said, mine was kind of abrupt. But that would be the most powerful thing, you know, that I would advise any and that's what I'm trying to do. As actually, I would love for the military to include that in their discharge process. They should.
I do have a plan. I have a plan
They
for that.
should have that as a part of their discharge process so that not they just hand you a book that has some information in it.
And a week-long PowerPoint.
And a week-long PowerPoint, but you actually go through this and meet people, real-life people that can help you with this.
I call this my 5th phase plan of Vetting America. I have it. I mean, I'm telling you, when I return, I prayed to God for the first time in 8 years back in September, around September 24th, because I was just lost. And I said, God, this is unsustainable. I don't know what to do. Please help. And I hadn't prayed in almost 8 years. And within 4 days, I was given this vision for Vetting America. And it took me 2 months to get it all in my head.
Wow,
2 months of
incredible.
writing, getting it down. 10-year plan I have.
That's incredible.
The final plan, it might be phase 4 or phase 5, I haven't decided yet, is what I want to establish as veteran boot camps. Transitioning boot camps.
There it is.
Because we're doing this while in, and it's like giving a high school student who's about to graduate high school a week-long class about college. They're not going to pay attention.
That's exactly
They don't
right.
care.
That's
it takes at
exactly
least
right.
3 months before transitional depression, which happens to a lot of veterans, actually sets in, and they go, whoa, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So why not start something post-service? We have the IRR. We have to do that muster at least once.
That's right.
I had to go to the muster. I went down to the Hilton,
Right.
USF, you know?
right.
And I got to meet a bunch of companies and meet other veterans, and it was good. What I'm thinking like a month-long veteran transitioning veteran boot camp, basically, where it's a month long. You get to come in, meet a bunch of other veterans who are transitioning out, meet a bunch of veterans who already successfully transitioned.
That's right.
Learn about the resources, come with your family, but even go a little bit further than that. What about veteran spouse workshops right before you get out that helps educate the spouse on
exactly right.
what are some of the problems that are going to happen?
That's exactly right.
What does PTSD look like? What does depression look like? What's post-service depression look like?
Right.
What's post-service growth look like?
That's right.
Where are the resources? What are the numbers you can, like, all of that information. We're not empowering the spouses, and then they feel useless. The veterans are losing their minds, and they end up divorcing them because they can't handle it. Because again, if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of other people? And we're setting people up for failure.
So what you just described was me.
Okay.
Because I lived every bit of that.
Oh, wow.
Every single piece of what you just described happened to me.
And would it have made a difference? I mean, your situation was different, but would it have made a difference if you had a week-long vet spouse workshop where you were
absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
have her informed.
It probably would have saved and changed a lot of things. So, and all veterans go through that.
Yes.
So count me in.
Yes,
you get
sir.
that process going.
Incredible interview. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Again, Tony Griffin, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy. That concludes another edition of Vetting America. If you're a veteran and you found that this type of information really helps you, that you're in a point in your life, in your transition, that you're stuck, please feel free to visit my Calendly page, set up a 30-minute phone call, and let's talk a little bit and see if there's anything that I can do, point you in the right direction, give you some advice that'll help you get you out of your own way and transcend into the life that you're trying to create for yourself out here. And let's stick together. Let's rebuild this community and build it stronger. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
And thank you. Have a great afternoon, live from downtown Tampa. I love this stuff. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.